Record. All right, hi everyone. My name is Blaine Jones. I am the admissions director, and welcome to Working While in School. So this is one of our additional new admit programs, and thank you all for coming. We have a distinguished panel of current students who are working while in school, and they'll be able to answer a lot of your questions. It's going to be very informal and very relaxed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and have them introduce themselves, starting with Brian.
Hey everyone, I'm Brian. I'm gonna turn off because I just got booted from Zoom. This will keep people. Really nice to meet you all. I am currently a first year student. I work.
Oh, he just got booted out. Or let's
start over.
Okay. We're having difficulty hearing you.
Yeah, by phone cooperating.
Uh-oh. All right, let's see. Well, let's go ahead and move on to Elizabeth, and then maybe Brian, you can figure it out, and then we can go back to you.
Okay, cool. Can everybody hear me? Is my camera good? Okay, awesome. So hi, I'm Elizabeth. Everyone, or I ask everyone to call me Moss just because that's my childhood name. I am also a first year. I just declared my intention for the multimedia track. And I think the reason Betsy suggested me for this is because I have been working full time while in grad school, and so what I was doing was a creative project coordinator at a brand in Los Angeles while also taking J school classes and like completing, my assignments. So I can speak on what it's like to have a full-time job while also doing the J200 course, and then also a little bit into the second semester. I think that's what everyone needed to know. So yeah, just ask me anything.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Izzy, your turn.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. So I'm studying like audio investigative. And the reason I'm on this panel is probably because I was a 50% GSI semester. So I have lots of fear just about how to work as a GSI for undergraduate classes. It's really great for intermission. I did work last semester, and this semester I'm working for the investigative reporting program at Berkeley, and I'm a reporting fellow for Richmond Pulse.
Great, thank you. And Leslie.
Hi, so I'm Leslie. I'm also a first year. I'm studying like narrative and multimedia because I like doing a lot of stuff. I didn't work my first semester because everyone told me not to. And I think in hindsight, it would have been a lot. So I'm super impressed that Moss was able to do it. I have two jobs now. I work like 20 hours a week. I'm an intern at KQED, and I also work for KQED for their California reporting project, which I'm like a data researcher for police misconduct. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Awesome, thank you. And now, Brian, are you able to?
Give me 1 second. I'm trying to dial in by my phone because my internet's being weird. Just give me like 2 minutes. I should be on then.
No problem, no problem. Yeah, unfortunately, we are in this digital age with the Zoom, so we're having a lot of technical difficulties. That's okay, that's okay. Yeah, when you get a sec and you're able to fix that, we'll jump right back to you. So I'm just gonna throw it out to the panel. So talk about your experience like searching for a job when you first came into Cal, because a lot of folks are kind of in that boat at this point in time. Figure out, balancing their fellowship awards along with their loans and whatnot, and then looking for opportunities to study. So currently, what are you doing, or what was the job that you started, and are you still doing that job? And to kind of just go into it, it'll be very free flow. And how about you, Leslie?
Okay. I just want to point out that I actually got a job as a tutor, which is like I don't know, you're sort of like grading papers and like helping. It's like a teaching assistant, sort of. But I guess if you can tell you more about that, it was pretty easy to get. I think I just reached out to like a lot of departments, and they were really willing to interview me, even though I wasn't technically part of it. But that's how I got that job. But my second semester, like I said, I work at KQED sort of like double time. So the first internship, I was sort of interested in audio, and so I wanted to, I guess my reasoning was like, what if I got a job instead of taking a class? I don't know why I did that, but I was really interested in KQD in general, so I just applied sort of on my own, and then I had an interview, just sort of got it. This specific role, though, didn't require audio experience, so I think that's why I had better luck. And then with the California Reporting Project, the research status stuff, I'm really interested in police misconduct in general, and I've done some stories. Like in my J200 class, I was a policing reporter for Oakland North, and so I had some experience there. I also come from like a family full of law enforcement people, so I had a personal interest in it. Yeah, I don't know. Did you want us to talk about the work we actually do, or just that?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. There's a question. Okay, that's crazy. I also technically work with the Human Rights Center because I'm in a law class right now, and so I'm writing an article like through with the director, or yeah, Eric Stover, who's one of the directors of that. But I'm not technically super involved. Brian can answer the Human Rights Center probably more than me. Yeah. For my internship, I do more like clerical stuff. Like I do a lot of stuff with social media, and I do a lot of like audience development stuff. And then with the California Reporting Project, like we get a lot of police cases, and we read through them and sort of figure out what exactly abuses have happened. And it's really nice because it's like 10 hours a week for $27 an hour. So that's like the most I've ever been paid my whole life. So that was nice.
Thank you. How about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be more of the cautionary tale of this panel, just because it was very, very hard my first semester to have a full-time job and then also, complete the coursework for J200. And I know that in the summer before I started, that was a really big question among those of us who had gotten in, can you have a job and also do J200? And it's really mixed. Some people, I wouldn't recommend full-time. I think some people can do part-time, and they can, still produce at the level they need to produce. I think if I had worked part-time, it would have been much easier, just mentally as well. There was definitely a breaking point in my semester, in my J200 semester. So I would just keep that in mind. I did come in, I had been working at my job since February of 2020. And I guess if any of you are working full-time, I would just ask yourself, like, what is your job demanding of you now? And can any of that work be shifted or changed? In my case, there was a management shift in the middle of the semester, which completely changed what I was able to get done. So that's going to be my piece. And I can talk more on that if anyone has specific questions.
Thank you. How about you, Izzy?
Great. So I can talk about the IRP and also what it is to GSI. So, and then I guess Brian can talk about the Human Rights Center, but so to start last semester, I didn't apply for the IRP because coming to the J school, I mean, grad school is no joke. It's a lot of money, and I'm sure like a lot of you are considering how you're going to pay for that. And for me, I came to one of these sessions and someone really clearly laid out like how much it is to work as a GSI. And like Elizabeth said, they really discourage you from working that the first semester. But personally, I'm really glad that I was GSI last semester, because this semester is actually a lot more work than last semester was with J200. So the GSI position that I did, there's like, so there's readers, and then there's tutors, and there's GSIs, and tutors and readers are like 25. I actually don't know tutors. Readers are 25%, so that's 10 hours a week. And then GSI is 20 hours a week, and you usually lead discussion sections, but it kind of depends on the department. And that's for undergraduate classes. And I can like drop some links. I don't know if this is super helpful and how much people really want like the breakdown, but I got this last year and this really helped me like plan out how I was going to pay for school by calculating all that. Okay, you do. So this is the link for the current rates for GSIing. And so I was GSI last semester, so it was 20 hours. And the compensation was $2,191 a month, and it was 5 months. The graduate resident tuition was $5,721. You get, so that's about $2,841. And then you get student services fee, which is $564, and the Berkeley campus fee is $150. The health insurance, if you have your own health insurance, you don't get like that much extra. It's either like you take it, get free insurance, or like the money doesn't go back to you. So I can put that in the chat too. And so basically what isn't covered if you GSI is the professional degree supplemental tuition, which is about $3,900, and then the campus fee, which is $142, pass fee, and any document management fees, and those kind of vary. It's like about a couple $100. And so the difference between GSI for 20 hours a week and reader is like reader's a lot less work. You don't lead discussion sections, and it's per hour. So it's about $16 per hour for 10 hours each week. But other than that, the reader is like the same like tuition remission and fee remissions. So that's really helpful if you're trying to pay for school. And this is the page for opportunities. If you go there, you can see like what the departments are, and you can get their emails. And what I did, I taught international environmental politics last semester because my undergrad degree is in international relations with a focus on environmental science. And so if you just email those departments, I would do it pretty soon. I think I emailed them in about like June, and then just ask them if there's any openings, and they can send you a link for where to apply. And then for the IRP, I applied this semester. What questions were there? So the IRP is 10 hours a week, and it's per hour. So it's $200 per week. And the application process, I think they'll probably put out in August. I think last year they did it a couple weeks after the semester started. And I think it was a resume and a cover letter. Yeah, there were no like letter of recommendations or anything. And the work that you do, basically you like work for a reporter. So I'm working for Garrett Therolf, who is a former LA Times reporter, and he also had the documentary series on Netflix, The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez. And typically some of the reporters at the IRP have like a couple ongoing projects, and then you work, it's usually like two people per project, and you basically do all the investigative reporting stuff like FOIAs and learning how to use TLO and PACER and calling sources and pre-interviews and actual interviews and things like that. You don't necessarily get to choose the project you work on, but I think that there's sometimes like an optional list, like what some of the projects are, and you can put in a preference, which is kind of what I did. Yeah, any other questions for, is it super competitive? I don't know. I don't actually know how many applicants. I think they always say like it was a very competitive pool, but I don't know if like they always say that for everything. So yeah, I can also, if people have questions they want to ask, I can put my email.
And what we can do is we can jump to Brian. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hopefully my internet stays stable. So I'll just introduce myself again. I'm a first year multimedia student, and I worked a handful of jobs. Kind of, I'm a weird case, I think, because I've been working a lot of small. And so my first semester, my main job was I worked for the HRC as a graduate student researcher at 24% time, which I've now come to realize are the jobs that you should try probably not to get, because that is like right before the cutoff where you get pay for remittance and the other benefits. And so that was something I didn't realize going into it. But I am fortunate in that I've gotten a lot of support from the school through like fellowships and grants. And so I was kind of put in the position where I could take a job like that. And I would say that like in that job, it's actually brought me a lot of opportunities to do the research and the type of work that I really wanted to do coming to Berkeley. Admittedly, it's not as well compensated as I would like for it to be, but the flip side is the projects I'm working on are really substantial, and I'm just thinking about what I can talk about. I'm broadly speaking right now, like I'm working with the Associated Press on an investigation into atrocities in Myanmar, and that's a huge project. We're leveraging open source techniques and really innovative techniques that the Human Rights Center has pioneered and innovated over the past few years into war crimes research. And so that's kind of been a really rewarding thing that I've been able to do and work, and it's paid. It's just it's tricky because it's 24% time. So with the pay scale that Izzy sent out, you can kind of see how that breaks down. Some of the ways that I know that people have worked it and that they've worked it for me is that within that scale, there's like different ratings for, I think, like your experience and skill set. And so I can't remember what it is exactly, but there's different rankings for GSRs and GSIs that coming in at different pay scales. And so that is also a way that you could kind of work with the departments to kind of adjust pay. And so I'd kind of encourage you to kind of like look for those opportunities. If they don't quite fit, I would encourage you to kind of talk to the department, see, like if there's other ways to work it. I got the HRC job kind of just through an email. I cold emailed the director, Dr. Alexa Koenig, over the summer. And we started talking, and then it ended up with me as a GSR. And then in terms of some of the other side gigs I've been doing, I've been working with the J School to kind of unify some of its records to create like an internal database to kind of track things a bit more easily. And then I've also been working with KQED for its data entry project. So I've kind of strung together like a lot of these small jobs that add up to pay to keep me alive through grad school. And I'd say it's in terms of time, it gets difficult, but I did work before coming to grad school, so I'm used to kind of like that pace and like the amount of work. But I would say that like in my first semester, I definitely got there were moments where like J200, it's a pretty relentless production pace. You're expected to produce consistently throughout the semester, and so if you kind of fall behind on like one thing, and you're also working and you're doing like a video production class or data viz or a narrative or something, right? You're in a lot of production classes that first semester. So if you're messy with your time management, you can very quickly fall behind. And there were times when I kind of fell behind and got stressed out, but it's doable. A lot of people do work their first semester. It's just kind of how much you want to put into it, and if you can kind of manage your time to doing that stuff.
Thank you, Brian. And just to throw another question, I see questions coming in the chat. We can jump to those as well, but maybe something that could be helpful is how many units did you take on your first semester? And do you think it's manageable in terms of like the job that you had, or maybe your first year? what unit load would you recommend? And this can just go to the panel. Anybody can answer.
I didn't say this before, but since Moss and Brian said it, I sort of want to bring it up. Like, I work 20 hours a week, and I, like Izzy, feel like this semester is somehow more work than last semester. So I don't really recommend doing that. Like, I mean, I work like 2 full days, like Monday and Tuesday, and I basically don't start school until like Wednesday. And then somehow Wednesday through Friday, I have to do all my reporting and writing. And so I just do not recommend doing that. But I will say, like, my first semester, it might be easier if you have J200 and like not a video class, but I had, it was 282. And that was like a lot of work because they were both production classes. So I was sort of coming up with stories for like 2 different classes, like at the same time. And that I think if I had a job, I wouldn't have gotten anything done. So I'll say that. And then I guess J200, I don't know how many, it was like technically 3 classes. So it was like 3 times a week, but it was like, there's something like a review class and like one for reporting and one for pitching, but it's all the same class. And I'd say, like, my professor started out the class or the semester saying like you had to pitch like every week. So like a different story every week. So then you would have to like report in advance, and I don't know. I would just take that into consideration, but you know, I'm sure if with the right time management, like, you can definitely do it. I just feel like sometimes I lack that.
So did you just answer the question that I was asked about J200 while I was locked out?
Oh, yeah.
My system crashed. I posted the question, then my system crashed and I had to leave and come back. And I just realized that you were answering the question that I posted.
Oh, okay. Was it, how many hours is it?
How taxing is J200 and what are you doing? Are you learning new software? Are you doing a lot of writing? What's going on there?
Right. Okay, yeah. So J200 is, I'll just like say it quickly again.
Sorry.
It's basically like 3 classes technically. So you have it 3 times a week, but each section is different. So one is for like pitching and reporting, and one is for like reviewing, I don't know, journalism in general. But I would say it's pretty time consuming. Like, at least my professor had us pitch like a story a week. So there's like 1 week where you were doing the reporting on the story for that you pitched last week, and then one for like the one you're doing next week. And then I would say it's mostly like reporting and writing, and like there was some opportunity for some data viz stuff and photos, but I would say it's mostly like the basics. Yeah.
Thank you.
Blaine, should I just jump in if I'm, for me in my J200 experience, I think my total class load the first semester, I think it was like 10 or to 12 units. And then that was about 10 to 11 hours a week. And then with my full-time job, in that job, I was working about 40 to 50 hours a week. So I did I had a lot of days where I was working until midnight just to get everything done. And like Leslie said, it's 3 class times a week. So it's like 3-hour chunks, 3 to 2-hour chunks, several times a week. And over Zoom, as time went on, those classes kind of turned, the professors kind of had mercy on us and would kind of cut class in half if people had reporting to get done. But for me, it was really just like a race to like be in class, and then just like on my work breaks, because I was also working online, just making calls in between, and doing my writing on the weekends whenever I had a moment. So yeah.
Thank you. I have a question about, oh, I'm sorry, there's a question up there. Go ahead.
Oh, I see. Corey had asked the question, how much, or Corey, do you want to ask your question? For some reason, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Okay, it was connected to my AirPods. Sorry. So I was just gonna ask, like, generally, how much of your financial aid package came from your job during your first semester? And if you've been offered a package and it doesn't necessarily cover everything, um, but it would cover like most, is that split like, I guess I'm asking, are the packages split in half between each semester, like straight down the middle, or is it like semester to semester? If one semester is fully paid and the other is not,
Oh,
then
I want to answer this. So yeah, so I sort of came in with like mostly a full package for the first year. Doesn't entirely cover the second year, but they split it exactly in half, and they do that like per year. So each year they give you like a certain amount, and when they tell you what that amount is, they split that like exactly in half. I would also say that if it doesn't cover all of it and you want more, you should definitely ask. Because they'll always like look for you. I think I was afraid like, well, I can't ask for too much, like they already gave me money, like definitely ask for more. And like the worst that they could do is say no. So yeah, they split it in half. And I will also say, well, I didn't have a job the first semester, so Izzy can take that, but my job didn't really, like, it was separate from the money that I received for school. So it was just so I could like pay rent and eat.
So for Corey's question, in what way did you ask for more money? Did you ask for it in the form of a position of a job, or did you just ask for money?
I asked if there were any like other funding scholarships. So I guess you could say I just asked for more money. But you know, a good way to pay other money that's left over is definitely like being a GSI or tutor. And I would say like being a tutor is almost easier than being a GSI because it's like way less work. Like I think GSI, I mean, as you can tell you, but it's like you're like teaching a class, but like being a tutor, from what I was offered, it was just like you're grading papers, you're holding office hours, like way calmer.
Yeah, and I would add to that, you can ask for more money, but we are a public institution, and to be fully transparent and honest, you may not necessarily get it from the department. That being said, although you can't plan ahead for this, there are a lot of things within the J School that will be presented to you throughout the year, like we have something called Clementine Awards. It's a hardship award if you find yourself in that position. So things will come up throughout the semester, but I know you have to plan ahead, so that's not something you can put in your budget ahead of time. And also, just in case this is not mentioned, there are opportunities to work within the J School. Several students work on the website, and they get paid for writing content, and there's a photography pool. Many students work in the production studio. So there's a lot of ways you can work in the school that are not tutor reader positions. And one more thing, in the spring of your second year, there are about 15 to 16 jobs within the J School, which will be announced to you, and that is competitive as well because there are not that many positions, but that's something you could do your second year.
got you. Thank you so much. And so you touched a little bit on making sure that, like, or I guess saying you can't plan ahead for some of the stuff, but it's gonna come up through the semester and through the year. Do you what opportunities, I guess, besides like the funding packages coming from the university, can students start to, I guess, do that planning ahead from in between like now and July? Would that be like doing the reaching out that students have been doing to like find the GSI and tutor positions?
I don't know if any of our first years can speak to this as well. It's kind of a separate topic, but I would strongly recommend starting now to look for outside funding. So there are sources on our website of places you can apply. I would suggest reaching out 5 to 5 sources per week if you can. It's tends to be sometimes the same application. One of our second year students said that she received so much money from applying for these scholarships that nobody was applying for. And she kind of mentioned that she suffered imposter syndrome, like, am I good enough for this? And then she found out, yes, I am. And she got a lot of funding that way. So that's something I would strongly recommend. I don't know if Moss or Leslie, Izzy, Brian have gotten outside funding. And I know we're talking about working, but that's something you could do starting now.
I can speak to a little bit. Not that I've received outside funding, but I worked with, or I volunteered with the Asian American Journalists Association in the past, and I've worked on some of the scholarship admission committees. And you would be surprised at how low some of these the applicant totals are for some of these scholarships. But yeah, I would really encourage you to look towards the affinity groups. Like I know NABJ has a lot of scholarships, as well as groups like ONA, and like smaller, the White House Correspondents Association. You know, there's a lot of press associations out there that have these like $2,000-$3,000 grants, like up to about 10,000. And so if you kind of scope that situation now, I think you could string together some grants to get some pretty significant outside funding. It is a process, you know, you have to get letters of recommendation, get portfolios, interviews, but it's kind of like, that's why the application pools are low a lot of the time. And so, you know, if you're able to put that time in, there's a good chance that you'll get it, especially if you have like solid work behind you, or if you're just putting in a good application. And I would recommend kind of, those are throughout the year, but they kind of bunch up around the fall and spring, I think. So I would just start looking soon, start looking early, and then just kind of like map out, you know, money throughout the year that you could possibly apply for. That's what I did a lot in undergrad, and that's what I did to fund a lot of my journalism internships. It's a lot of work, but you know, it is a way to kind of find outside funding.
I have a question on that matter, and to add to Michelle's comment, once you get the package together, then you can start sending it out to multiple places. You know, they're all almost the same questions. But do you recommend, you know, one of the sticklers and one of the reasons there's probably a low applicant rate is and sometimes they want the references to be uploaded with the package by you. But I know from having experience on the other side, sometimes the references are more credible when they're sent independently. Do you recommend us asking for reference letters written to whom it may concern so that we can just send it all up together at the same time? Or does it look better when it comes directly and unseen by the applicant?
I mean, I can say real quick, I think it just like depends on what you're applying for, because I had a couple of those this semester, and sometimes they're like, I want your person writing the letter of recommendation to address it to this organization. So I think it probably depends.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit here in my experience. I'm not a current student, but a lot of scholarships and opportunities, they either have you upload letters into a portal, or they have you put an email of your recommender into a field, and then that will sort of generate a link sent to that recommender, and then they'll upload the letter in that sort of like confidential way. So it really does depend on the place.
Yeah, they do that. But in terms of getting out 5 a week, you know, then the issue is not whether you can upload the stuff. The issue is how much do you want to pester your recommenders to keep clicking and uploading, or whether it's a bit of an, I think that might have something to do with Brian's comment of there being low applicants, because, you know, you want to get the best people to be your recommenders, and they're usually busy people. So,
I mean, I asked my recommenders, like I gave them like a 2-month lead and let them know when, like what I was going to ask them letters for, and then when I would need it, like, you know, a soft deadline and a hard deadline. And then what often they did is they just used the same letter and then sort of changed it a little bit also.
I think Julia has her hand up.
Hi, I have a question about J200 courses. I guess it would depend maybe a bit whether you take the topical course or the course in like Oakland North and the other one I'm blanking on. But I guess with like J200 courses, could you use your pitches in classes to pitch actual publications? And can professors help with that?
In our J200, that was encouraged. And to an extent, our professor did help, but it was a bit tricky because of the nature of the pandemic and just the way that our class was set up this year. Because for Oakland North, the professor was in Washington, D.C. And so she was like a new professor, who's got a transition year. But I think in the past, people at the J school do help students get published. So it's kind of like, if you have a place in mind, I think you can kind of work the J School network and they can work their networks and put you in touch. So it's that sort of thing. But I was in Oakland North. I'm not sure how the other classes.
Then I guess like one quick question I'm going to ask, like, are all your articles that you write for the class like uploaded on a website? Because like then you can't pitch it if like it's uploaded to like a class website.
Yeah, that like really depends on what you work for. Like specifically Oakland North and Richmond Confidential, which is the other one, like they have websites. So like whatever you write, I mean, unless you tell your professor you want to pitch it somewhere, then it wouldn't be, because you'd be going through the process with that editor. And I wasn't in the environmental class or extremism class, but from what people told me, it was like they were trying to pitch outside, but I can't remember if like Izzy or Moss was in that, so maybe they could talk about it.
I mean, I would say the J200 professors are like really encouraging of like double dipping, especially like with other classes you're taking. Like if you're taking an audio class or a dot class, a lot of people were doing like the same story for like multiple mediums, for instance. And I think even if it's published, like I did print piece for Richmond Pulse, but then I also like made an audio story for Cal W. So you can like do it in that way. And I think that professors, I would recommend honestly, like always telling your professors everything that you're working on, because a lot of them work at outlets. And like I was working on a piece for Cal Matters and my professor worked at KQED and she was like, I think KQED would be interested in that. And then they took the piece and I made like a audio piece for it. So I just always talk about what you're working on, because you never know like who's going to be interested in it. But they're very helpful for getting things published for sure.
Thank you.
If I could just jump in for a sec too and answer a little bit of that question. I was in the extremism reporting class and the professor was like very helpful. We had great advisors in that class as well. I think what got hard is that the subject matter was just very hard to place at some point, and even journalists who are working at major outlets and this is their beat have trouble coming up with story ideas for that specific area. So I guess I don't know what the special topics are for this year's upcoming J200 classes, but I would just think about where you want to publish and how much you want to publish, and maybe if they placed you in a J200 course that might be trickier to get published, if that makes sense. Maybe think about if that's if you're okay with kind of finding ideas for that, and maybe experiencing maybe it being a little bit harder to place stories, just like my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I got placed in another J200 section, and then I asked to be switched to Oakland North. I don't know if they do too many of those, but that's like a possibility.
I asked, they didn't let me.
They didn't.
I think it's all based on we try to distribute the students equally between the 4 classes. So one class doesn't have like all males and another class is all women. We just want it to be equitable. And that being said, later in the summer, you'll be asked what your first choice is. Most of the time, students get their first choice, but we don't guarantee it because, as I said, we're distributing students equally. So it's likely that you'll get your first choice. And extremism was, I've heard from many students, a very difficult and challenging subject that I don't think that's going to be offered in the fall, FYI.
Darn, I was looking forward to that one.
You'll find other
I was
opportunities
just gonna
to
add,
deal with extremism.
This is more of a general question, but and it might be something that Michelle could speak to. Could you just walk us through, I guess, what new admins who decide to commit can expect the communication from the university to look like as far as over the summer, like as we slowly get integrated into or and like transition to coming to Berkeley? When do we start to find out about like classes and you'll get a million emails? I can't wait.
Well, that being said, right now until about May, I'm drawing a blank. Commencement is May 4th, or is it later? No, maybe it's May 14th. Anyhow, so our focus right now, the admin, is to getting the second years successfully off the lot, so to speak. So then you will be receiving a lot of emails about when you can expect to see your loans processing and when you usually receive funds the first week of class. So then we send you an email reassuring you not to freak out because you won't get a late fee because it kind of overlaps. We'll communicate with you about classes. You'll, as who said, Leslie, yes, Leslie, you will get a ton of emails. And then as you become a student, we kind of try to put a lot of that on Slack because we know you're inundated with emails. But don't worry, you won't be not communicated with, but you might have to be a little patient till we get through commencement.
Thank you so much. And from the student perspective, I guess um what was the thing that changed the most over summer, I guess, from the time you were accepted to the time you're like, okay, my bags are packed, I'm ready to hop on the plane, train, bus?
I can answer. Oh, wait, sorry, Brian, were you gonna?
no, I was gonna ask for a clarification, just like change in what way?
Um, like I guess right now, from my perspective, like I'm excited. I been to like the class visits. I'm getting an idea of what I'm getting myself into. But like when you were in this place, I guess in your admissions process, what did you not know that you found out, I guess, over the summer that you like would have prepared more for? Or that's not to say like things don't happen in their own timeline. I'm an aggressive planner.
I think the biggest thing for me is this year has moved by so quickly. Like I can't believe it's April and we're almost at the end of our first year, and it feels like I blinked and like now we're here. So I would say pace yourself, but also just be prepared for how quickly the semester moves, how quickly things really just like once it starts it goes. So I would just be prepared for it. And also one thing that kind of changed was I had like weird confidence issues going into like I had like I worked in journalism before going to grad school, but like I had this weird moment when I started grad school and I had to do my J200 classes and I was like, I can't get anyone on the phone, like I'm a fraud, but then it was like a weird thing, like took me a while, but I got through that too. I talked to some folks and it seemed like that like some other people went through that too. So I just, if you feel that, don't feel like you're alone. At least I went through it. Other people I know went through it. So those are the kind of the two big things.
I think like imposter syndrome was like a big thing for semester for a lot of people. Also during the summer, I think for me, I was moving to Berkeley, so housing is like really hard and it's really expensive. So I would like get on that as soon as you can, and like go on the Facebook groups and like look for people that who live there and have suggestions. And then one thing I actually remember people talking about at the end of J200 was that they wished they had a better idea going in of like what they wanted to be reporting on, because some of them have like specific beats. I know Oakland North gave everyone beats, but Richmond Pulse did not have beats, and people kind of like wished that they knew exactly what types of topics they wanted to be covering. So I think having an idea of what you want to be reporting on or what you want to get out of the class would maybe be helpful, because I know some people were saying they wish they did that.
So is that the one class that you take that very first semester? Or is that one?
You also, you take like so it's like Leslie was saying, there's like 3 classes for it, and then there's you typically take like one other class, I think. Like some people take photos, some people take doc or intro to doc, intro to audio. Some people took classes from Berkeley too, I think, like coding classes instead
Some
that
people
weren't
took
direct from the J
classes,
school.
sorry, Izzy. And some people, if they didn't want to take those 3 classes, could take a class outside of the J school.
Yeah, I would second everything that Brian and Izzy said. I would also say, like, because the year goes by so fast, like I think you should really know like what exactly you want to do at the J school. So like if you want to do the IRP, if you want to do video, like you should know that before you come, and like make sure you plan your classes accordingly, because year goes by like so fast. Yes, also housing. Like I moved here from the East Coast and I knew like nothing about California. So like I spent like weeks, felt like months, like looking for an apartment that wasn't like $3,000 a month. So definitely that. And I kind of like didn't know anything about this neighborhood before I moved in, so I don't actually know where the grad students live.
I would say
I
if
don't
you
know if
don't
there's
know
like a specific
anything,
place.
sorry, who am I interrupting? Sorry. I would say if you don't know anything about the Bay Area, hopefully you don't want to find yourself apartment too far away. Like we have one student who was living in Pacifica, and that's about an hour or so down the coast, and he continued living there. But most students aim to live in Berkeley or Oakland or El Cerritos nearby, and it depends on whether or not you have a car. Public transportation is pretty good, but I would aim to live nearby because you're going to be super, super busy. You don't want to be living. Students do live in San Francisco, but I've heard that it can be difficult.
And there's a Cal Rents kind of open house thing tomorrow. I saw that. Back to the job, I have a question for Izzy. She said she sent out some applications or letters to these contacts from each department. How many departments did you contact? And you said they all just sent you a link to apply for a job. I
Yeah,
find
I
that
sent
one
like a
hard to
generic.
believe.
Yeah, no, because they're the department always pretty much they always have like a deficit of students that they need to be teaching, and like graduate students are like a really big resource for the school. So if you email, I think I emailed maybe 5 departments, and I mean I did it kind of late, so some of them were like we already hired. Some of them
What
do it really last minute. I remember.
can you, that's the question, is like when did those opportunities open up? Because I know that they start hiring in, as early as March and April, but they prioritize their own graduate students. So you must have hit them at a time when the graduate student pool had been spent.
I think, I mean, anytime. I think May would be a good time to at least just email the departments and say something along the lines of like what your relation is to that department, or like why you would want to teach that, and that you're a graduate student and you're looking for a job with tuition remission, and everyone. And I think that for instance, I taught in the environmental science department, and they sent me to a website where you just upload a resume and then like click which classes you're interested in teaching, and then they get back to you on that. In the environmental science specifically, if you have any connection to that, if you study that or something, they always have more positions than they have applicants. So that one's yeah, that one's good.
I also like
There's just for the question real quick, I put in a link for the contacts above.
Yeah, I got
there's
that.
like a list. Yeah.
yeah.
My experience is I reached out to the film and media, which is what I've been teaching, and they wrote back right away because they thought that I was applying for a lecturer position, which you're not allowed to do as a graduate student. And I said, well, can I do that anyway? That looks good. And they said, no, you got to apply for a GSI position. And I said, well, you got one of those? And they said, no, we have to prioritize our majors. And that's the same in a lot of universities. So maybe late in the season when the majors are no longer available and they know what their student, class load is, that's might be a good time to board on.
I found like this list, and I don't know if like Izzy saw it, of like departments that were hiring like GSIs, readers, and tutors, and like how many specifically they were hiring. And then also, like, correct me if I'm wrong, like, don't you have to take a class of some sort to be a GSI?
Well, that's the list I'm looking at now, and that's the one that Izzy already shared.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, it'll
And-
say like how many readers position, how many GSI positions they have.
Yeah.
I haven't really heard too much about like, I mean, I think that they might prioritize people in their department just because of like the experience, but I feel like everyone's always been able to find a GSI position, and they were hiring some really late. I remember last year, like even into September, they were still, some departments were like scrambling to find extra GSIs and readers. So I think it's good if you like reach out early, and then if it doesn't work, like do another round of emails or something. Doesn't hurt. Worst that happens is they say no.
We also post positions on Slack because they reach out to us. So we put it on our Slack channel so you can find them there. I don't think it's too early to reach out. They base their needs on their registration, so they'll know their registration numbers soon, and they'll know if they need 1 or 2 GSIs. It doesn't hurt to reach out, and if they say we don't know yet, then ask them when you can reconnect with them later on. And if you are a GSI, you do have to take a pedagogy class.
Julia, do you have a question?
I was wondering if anyone here lived in the Berkeley co-op and had experience balancing those hours with class. And okay.
I was wondering how much, if any, like if any of you, well, A, I guess if any of you lived on campus, and B, I guess how that impacted your work hours, or if that impacted your availability to get to work or from work, ease of access, all that stuff. Also, I just never hear anything from like J school students specifically about living on campus. So it's like, I'm wondering if this is one of those departments that has like a less of an on-campus student population.
Well, I don't know if any, I mean, I live in Berkeley, but I don't know if anyone specifically lives on campus. I mean, and then you have to like remember that like we were doing nothing in person, so like everything was virtual. Like I'm pretty sure like GSIing and like, so it didn't really matter. Like I don't really know anyone who was going into work. I mean, they didn't even let us in their building. So
There's also off-campus student housing.
yeah. Yeah, I actually live across the street from a on-campus student housing that one of our classmates lives in. And then the grad housing for family and married is in Albany, which is like a 15-minute drive. Well, for me at least.
Thank y'all.
All right, so we are at 2:01. Are there any still lingering questions if you all are willing to stay and answer them? All right, cool.
That link in that list is this guide to fellowships grants link that people were talking about earlier. I just want to make sure I clicked the right.
I actually sent that to you.
Oh, okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's a good place to start. Yeah, I've already started and digging in there, and there are opportunities. Brian's comments are true. Yeah.
So like Laura had a question, and I want like other people to put their input, but I just wanted to say like, I don't know if there's jobs that, I mean, obviously there are like documentary jobs, but I would put that like whatever you're reporting interest in, I think can span that. So like you could take a job that's like sort of in the subject matter that you're interested in, and it's not necessarily documentary, but it could help. And of course there are like documentary jobs. I'm not in that track, so I couldn't specifically, but maybe Michelle could, or someone else.
Some of the job, like the IRP has produced stories that have gone on to become documentaries, and so I that could be a track, like with Garrett, where Izzy's, the reporter Izzy's working with, and maybe she could speak about that. I think documentary
Locked up.
production, doing
You froze, Brian.
Yeah, you might
Right.
want to go off screen and talk. Sometimes it helps.
I'll just say there may not be jobs that like are directly documentary production at the school necessarily, although they may exist. There's like a lot of weird niches at the school, but I think like with IRP and other organizations, there are opportunities that kind of feed into documentary and the documentary world that that you can pick up skills. So it kind of just depends on what you want to do in documentary, I think.
I have a friend on the doc track who's working at the Advanced Media Institute, which I think is kind of like a teaching job. I think it might be for undergrads or something. And so that's like documentary related, but like teaching. And then there are like job opportunities that come up. Like I know someone that graduated last year is working at Showtime and they were looking for a researcher. So like all of this like job opportunities come up on the Slack channel. The Slack channels are really, really helpful. They're just like constantly inundated with new job opportunities and people seeking out Berkeley students.
I know that Ruth had asked me about Slack channels later on. And so once you all matriculate, confirm, be in Berkeley and whatnot, we'll be able to add you to the additional Slack channels. So right now they're just limited to their class of 2023 Slack channel.
Yeah, this is the Slack channel that I have. I don't know what my mute's on. Okay, this is the Slack channel that I've been looking at with this little window that rotates these GSI positions. And those jobs haven't changed in like a couple of weeks. So, and even if I wanted to apply to one of them, I couldn't because you have to be registered to get a Slack account to apply for them. So I guess I'm like you, Corey, I'm kind of eager.
Sorry, I have one more question. That I saw on the website that we could like take 4 hours of like journalism grad hours. How does that work? Where it's like not a class, but it's up to I think 4 credits a semester.
Is it the ghost credits, Michelle?
I'm trying to understand your question. What are you referring to?
I am referring to, let me go, that I think you could take 4 credits a semester of grad study.
You might be referring to these, and let me know if I'm wrong, these ghost, as Izzy said, administrative units. Where did you see that on our website? Okay, so basically it's a university requirement that you have to be enrolled in at least 12 units per semester. So the way, but you don't necessarily have to take all those units in J school. So to make up for that, you can take up what you refer to, those ghost credits.
Okay, because I know I'm going to be a narrative writing track, and so I may just, yeah, because there's not like a class for me, so that I would take necessarily first semester in addition. So I was looking into that. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
And on those million emails that we're going to get, I assume there'll be an invitation to for us all to sort out our schedule for the first semester.
Yes.
We can talk to somebody like you, Michelle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They email us about the IRP every semester. So they'll just like send it to you that way.
Yeah, for me, that was kind of like, I think that's something that's a little bit difficult about the IRP is like, I knew that I needed a job to pay for grad school, and the IRP, if you apply for a GSI job, that's like determined early, like in the summer, and IRP doesn't even come out with their application until semester starts. So it's kind of like hard to balance that and figure it out, which is why I went with the GSI position and then applied for IRP this semester. But yeah, that's not going to be out until classes start.
I'm so sorry to hold people, but like, how do you deal with, I guess, how do you deal with that time where you're not sure exactly how it's gonna work out? Because like, you can like, yeah.
Now, I think that all of the things that they're talking about in terms of applying for these jobs and scholarships and everything it doesn't require any commitment, you know, to the school. You know, and you can get a sense, you know, I guess our deadline to commit would be May 1st, right?
That's correct, May 1st.
I mean, like Michelle, correct me, but I remember like having this like same fear of like not having enough money to go to grad school, and like someone telling me that there were a lot more opportunities like once you were in the school, maybe like committed to it. I don't know if that's like if you have to be enrolled to like apply for a GSI position or anything. And then personally, I just kind of applied for a bunch of things in panic. So
I think it's just plan ahead, plan ahead.
mhm.
You can't guarantee that you're going to get more money from the school or the university. I can say there are opportunities that will come your way, but basically I would plan ahead with seeking outside funding. Sorry to be a broken record. I would apply for jobs on campus if that's your intention. As I think it was Moss said, it's difficult working the first semester. There's always loans. Some people are loath to take out loans, and I understand that. But I would just take this time now while you're not in grad school yet. And I know you probably have a life and you're really busy and maybe you're working or in school, but to plan ahead and to reach out to us, Tracy and I, with any questions you have. But I know May 1st is the deadline, but you can still be thinking about whether you're coming after. It's not like we're going to hold you ransom. So, and you can email me if you have any, you know, specific worries or questions.
I'm like wondering, Michelle.
I was just going to ask Corey, what specifically are you like concerned about? Like housing, funding, going to grad school at all? Maybe this isn't the forum for it. We can also meet on Zoom separately if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd love to meet separately. But yeah, I mean, all of the above. I mean, complete transparency, like I think that, well, first, I come from a university where like they tell you, oh, you don't need grad school. And then I was like, I got into Berkeley, and they were like, oh, okay, so you're going to grad school. And I think it was like the admissions events have been so helpful, and reaching out to students and professors individually has been so helpful in like helping me to get an idea of what what grad school is and what Berkeley is and what life in California is. It's just the whole like getting ready to move across the country in a pandemic to a state I've never been to a school I've never been to. But I mean, it's fun. It's just a lot
Where
to
are
plan.
you?
And
Where are you, Corey?
I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, but I'm in Boca Raton, Florida right now. So
I'm from St.
for
Pete,
context, that's
Florida.
like, oh, hey sis.
And I'm living in Atlanta. I'm living in Atlanta right now.
I'm from
Oh, the big peach.
Corey, would it be helpful for you to maybe you've met a lot of current students to connect with some students? Maybe you could send me an email of things you would like to talk to us. Maybe you want to talk to a documentary student or a student who's from Florida. I don't know.
Corey, I had a helpful conversation with the career services person.
Mm.
I just asked her, she's very energetic and bubbly. And I said, let's backwards engineer this and pretend like I'm about to graduate right now. You know, what am I looking at? Is this going to be worth it? And
Yeah.
it was very helpful.
Corey, if you have questions about moving across I did the exact same thing. Like I moved across the country, like I drove to California. I'd never been there before. So like if you have questions, like I'm gonna leave my email.
Please. Yes, thank y'all all for these amazing resources.
And there's links on that thing to other schools that have other, you don't have to get all of your scholarship applications out from the Berkeley School. There's other things like from Purdue and UCLA, and You know, you can apply for, that's one thing I learned in sending out applications, that you can apply for money from other schools to go to school at Berkeley. Kind of weird. There's just there's grants, and they exist in the universe. They don't necessarily exist for that school's students. They just come from that school. They're administered from that school.
Another thing on the housing front, I was going to ask Michelle if like they have a Facebook group, because I remember last year, like we had one, and a lot of the second years like put in like housing openings that they had found and stuff like that. Like I think that could be helpful also.
Yeah, I'm not sure who did that last year. It might have been your predecessor, Blaine, not putting you on the spot, but I'll talk to Tracy about that. And thanks for reminding us about that. That's a good idea.
Sure. Yeah, we talked about it, Tracy and I, we figured we navigate with a Slack for now, and then eventually migrate over to a Facebook group or have that as an option.
Ooh, Facebook.
Right. So that was part of the hesitation as to why we didn't do it. All right, any other lingering questions, Leslie?
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's like the only platform that is like successful at like groups. So that's why I like didn't like Facebook either.
Oh, those groups.
All right, well, we're at almost 2:15. We'll go ahead and close the presentation, but this has been phenomenal, and I loved how we were just bounced back and everybody was able to answer their questions. And it looks like a lot of the folks, the panelists, have put their emails inside the Slack channel, or I'm sorry, in the chat. I can drop them in the Slack channel if need be as well. And well, just a round of applause or a thank you to everyone that volunteered their time: Brian, Moss, Izzy, Leslie, and Michelle, definitely. And yeah, look forward to seeing you all in the next presentation if you're interested. It's going to be happening at 4 to 5, and that will be like on equipment and student showcase, and you'll be able to see some student works and whatnot. But yeah, thank you all for coming. All right, take care, everyone.